The Effects of Child Abuse and Neglect is brought to you by Texel, your credit union, with locations in Temple, Belton, and Killeen. Visit us at texel.org.
May the face of the Lord shine on you. May He shower His blessing on all that you do. May you never know anguish, sorrow, or strife. Dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of your life.
Howdy, I'm Sue Ellen Jackson, and I'm from Aware, Central Texas, and this is Effects of Child Abuse and Neglect. Grab a cup of coffee and sit down with us, because today we're going to be looking at physical abuse. We're going to understand what that is when you are a physically abused child. We're going to be learning about shaken baby syndrome, and we're going to be hearing from Lisa. Lisa is a young lady that grew up with horrific abuse, and she wants everybody to hear her story because she wants to help. Lisa's a young mom, and she's struggling with raising her own 3 kids. And we're also going to be hearing from Joey. Joey is a professional man in the community, and he also grew up with abuse. In addition to that, I have 2 lovely guests with me. Fred Harris is a detective from the Killeen Police Department, and Leah Jones, you are from the Family Advocacy Program at Fort Hood. Leah, what exactly do you do there?
I'm a home visitor for a new parent support program. I go out and visit families that have babies from 0 to 3.
Wow.
We provide information, education, and support.
So you guys are prevention of...
Orientated.
Yeah. And you do that through education and support.
And information.
Yeah,
yes.
Kind of like what we do at Aware Central Texas. I love the fact that you're going into the homes. I think that makes a huge difference. And Fred, you're at a different end of the spectrum. You're a detective, and you're the guy that has to investigate the calls when the child has been beat. You're the guy that has to go into the home and gather information. And I know you and I have talked in the past, and I know it's hard. The state of Texas has a law, and it's the family code, and they define physical abuse, very long sentence short, as doing bodily harm. And so that's the kinds of things that we're looking at. You also have knowledge of shaken baby syndrome.
Yes.
We're going to take a look at what Lisa has to say, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about those things some more. So let's listen to Lisa for a minute here.
The physical abuse that I suffered, I'm going to say a couple incidences from my mom, was definitely physical abuse. Whether I deserved it or not, the child doesn't deserve physical abuse. Like you said, a spanking on the butt does not hurt. But the way sometimes I got beat was really bad. Like one incident when I was in 7th grade is when the sexual abuse came out. And my mom, for some reason, would never go to conferences. First, she didn't have a ride, but second, she just didn't go. And so one day, you know, when my guidance counselor was going to talk to her about the sexual abuse and trying to get her to come in and get an appointment for her to come in, she still wouldn't come in. So one day, her by accident, and I don't know, it was a mistake. One of the secretaries in the school had asked my mom if she was raising an animal in the an animal in a cage at home. Boy, oh boy, that was physical abuse that day. when I got home, I said, "Oops, well, Mom, I got my report card today. It wasn't real good, but I did get a D." I got all F's and a D that year on the grade. I have to laugh about it because I can just remember my mom, when she jumped up off that couch, boy, I thought I was dead. She said to me, did I raise an animal in a cage at home? An animal? Boy, oh boy, if my brother wasn't there, my brother Bruce, she got up and just knocked me down on the floor and started beating the crap out of me. And all along, you know, it was because of the sexual abuse is why I was acting up so bad in school. But that day, I deserved a whooping, but not that kind. You know, I really got the crap beat out of me that day. And my brother Bruce jumped up and grabbed her and said, "Lisa, go up to your room and put something in front of your door. And don't come back down tonight because she's liable to kill you." So, and believe it or not, she did go into a conference though. And that was when probably one of the worst incidents I can ever remember her beating me. But most of the time, I got the crap beat out of me all the time by my older brother. He was, I can't remember exactly how many years. I think he's like 5 years or 8 years older than I am. Him and I don't talk to this day. He just used to beat me up all the time. And I don't understand why. And it wasn't anything I do. It was just because he was in a bad mood. He would beat me up. And it's one of the things I started telling you about, the steps. When I popped my knees both out of place, I was running upstairs to get away from him because I knew he was babysitting me and he was coming after me. And I was running up the steps and he grabbed me by my foot. And when I came down, I hit my knees both on the steps and popped them both out of place. So, but he used to punch me really bad all the time. And I can just remember it. That was the physical abuse that I really suffered, was from my older brother, Brian. And, you know, I know he was suffering a lot of emotional and mental abuse, probably because of being so close to my dad. So I think he took his aggressions out on me because me being the younger child and being the only girl, I think I got it the most. And there was just, that was, I think, his way of taking it out on me, but it wasn't okay. And it's not okay to hit a child the way some parents do. And it's sad, very sad.
You just heard part of Lisa's story, and if you identify with any part of that, please give us a call, either as a parent or as a child that was wounded by a parent or a caregiver. Call us. We're here to encourage you and to give you education and to give you resources that will help you move away from that curse of child abuse and neglect. Our number at Aware Central Texas is 254-939-7582. That number again is 254-939-7582. You can also check out our website. It's awarecentraltexas.org, or go on our Facebook. Leah and Fred, here again, thank you for being here. You know, I noticed when Lisa was talking about the physical abuse, she also mentioned the emotional abuse attached to that. But as a detective, when you go out on a call, the event's already happened. Right. What kind of a mess are you dealing with, just in a real general, give us a real general picture of what you're dealing with?
A horrific mess. Number one, you have the child who is abused. You have the abuser. And most times you have a person who knows that the child is being abused and hadn't reported it. So we're dealing with a number of things. The first thing is to get the child medical care and the medical needs that he or she needs. And then we start to figure out who caused the abuse, why the abuse was caused. There's a number of factors that we look at before we just, short answer, before we just go to make an arrest. You know, there's factors behind why this abuse was caused. Financial problems, problems themselves. You know, is there any help out there to prevent this abuse from occurring again? and the severity of the abuse. So those are the types of things that we take into account. We gather all the evidence. We interview people. We talk to them. We find out what's going on. We try to do joint investigations with CPS to enact some of the services that they have on their side, and then we make a determination whether or not to forward our investigation up to the district attorney's office for review for possible prosecution.
There's a thing called shaken baby, and in my opinion, that is the most horrible kind of physical abuse there is. And Leah, you have some working experience with that through the Family Advocacy Program on Fort Hood. Tell us about shaken baby. What is that?
Well, the definition of shaken baby is a serious head injury where a frustrated caregiver shakes a baby violently because they're crying.
So, shut up!
Yes,
Oh,
be that.
yeah.
And if you expand it more, actually, it's called abusive head trauma now.
Okay, so it's not called shaken baby anymore, it's called abusive head
trauma.
trauma. Okay, thank you.
Right. And that's because babies are not only shaken, they can be shaken and thrown, shaken and their head can hit the end of a table. Any number of things can occur with that head being hit somewhere. So it's more expansive to call it abusive head trauma.
Right,
basically.
and typically baby's crying, mom's reached her limit, or dad or whoever, and they pick the child up in a impulse and
yes, and shake them. Exactly.
and the damage is just sometimes
very horrific.
and they die. Sometimes babies die from that. And I know, Fred, you've had some firsthand experience with that.
Yes.
How do you go home at the end of the day when you're dealing with that?
It's tough, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
Of course, you know as well, I've talked to you about it. I've had a number of experiences with that. You just go home and hug your kids a little bit harder.
Absolutely.
And you do everything that you can so that at the end of the day, you know that you have done things and put things in place, and you try to be at ease. So if the child is still living, you do everything you can to protect that child from this ever happening again.
Right.
And if the child is old enough to talk and comprehend, you let them know that the police is not bad. We're here to protect you, and in my eyes, children should come first.
In terms of physical abuse, to the point that you have to step in, is it more older teenager children, or is it the little guys that can't defend themselves, or is it just a mix of both?
I would say it's a mix of both. However, there is quite a bit of the little ones who can't defend themselves,
Right.
who can be intimidated into not talking. If you tell on me, mommy's going to go to jail. If you tell on me, daddy's going to go to jail, or something like that, or just the impulse of, you better not say anything or this is going to happen worse next time. So it's hard to talk to a little kid and extract this information from them, knowing that the end result is whoever hurt you this severely is probably going to be punished by the law. So
Yeah.
those are just things we have to work through.
That's so sad. Leah, what happens to a child when they're shaken? What happens to their little heads? I mean, what kind of damage can occur when a child receives that kind of traumatic brain trauma?
Of course, it depends on how hard baby was shaken, but any baby that's shaken violently can experience a number of things, from nausea to blindness, developmental delays, learning delays, and it only takes 5 seconds or less to kill or harm a baby very seriously.
Really? Just 5
Yes.
seconds?
Yes.
So just in that,
Yes,
you can actually kill your baby like that?
you can. 5 seconds or less.
That's terrifying.
Exactly.
You know, when you've got, I had a nurse tell me there's 3 kinds of babies. There's the nonstop crying fussy baby, there's the sort of aloof baby, and then there's the smiley baby. But when you've got a baby that's fussy and crying, and you have life stressors, that will put you right to the very limit.
Exactly.
And I can't imagine how you could live with yourself if just in a moment you snatched up your child and now this child is handicapped for the rest of their life and you're going to jail, or this child is dead. We've got to find ways to educate people about that and let them know that the consequences far outweigh the moment, you know, and that there are better alternatives. What are some good alternatives when you've got this crying child and you're at your wit's end? You're ready to blow.
First of all, we encourage, when I teach at the hospital, when our group teaches or goes out to homes, we have a DVD called The Period of Purple Crying, and that's an intense period of crying that babies usually go through. It begins at about 2 weeks. We encourage parents to watch the DVD, and if they don't have the DVD, if it's not available to them, do basic things. First, check basics. Is baby hungry? Does baby's diaper need changing? Is there something unusual going on? Is a pin pinching them? Do they have gas? Basic things. And then to think about what has soothed their baby in the past. Those are basic things to do. And they need to increase their comfort of that baby, walking the baby more, talking more to the baby. If those kinds of things don't work, if all else fails, they need to put baby down in a safe place and leave the room. Because babies can cry up to 5 hours a day, and that can be within normal limits.
Oof.
Exactly. And they need to tend to themselves. Call somebody that supports them, walk around the living room, do some exercises, see if a neighbor can come by to sit with them. Things that will help them calm down.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're watching this show and you're a mom and you've got a fussy baby, or you're going through life stressors and the fact that your baby is crying just sends you to the very edge, walk away. Put your baby in the baby bed. Walk away from the baby, right? Pick up the phone and call a friend or call somebody, call a neighbor and say, I've got to walk away from my baby for a minute. This little guy has been crying for the past 2 hours. Nothing I do is helping. I've really got to regroup. Can you please come over here for just a few minutes? Wow. You know, and one of the problems that we have in our particular region is that we have a lot of military families where the other parent is deployed, and if you're that family, find a friend and get somebody to come in there and sit with your baby while you take care of yourself for a minute. Wow, I appreciate what y'all are doing. And Fred, when you see that teenager and you go to the call and this child is bleeding, or this child has a black eye or a teeth out, or what's on that child's face? You know, what are you seeing when you see this child?
Usually they're terrified. They're they don't understand why this would happen to them, regardless of what they did. Why does this have to happen to me all the time? Just a sense of being scared. Scared of the abuser, scared of the police, because usually the abuser has said that the police are the bad ones. So there's lots of different things that we have to do to calm that person down, the victim, calm the victim down, and be able to talk to them, to get the information that we need to do what we think is necessary to do at the time.
Right. Mm-hmm. What is the most common type of physical abuse you see?
Shaken baby.
Really?
That's in my experience.
Right.
There are others. Excessive belt hitting, extension cords, things like that. But the majority of what I see is the shaking of a baby. out of frustration, there's a lot of excuses that we get for the act of doing it. But in my profession, sometimes those excuses don't measure up to the cause of what I'm investigating. So
Right.
when it's that severe, we have to do what we have to do. And if there's services that need to be provided after that, then we filter that out.
Right. So above all, you have to keep that child safe or put them in a safe environment. You have to do that.
That is the desired goal.
Right.
Is to keep the little one safe, regardless of biological mom or biological dad or boyfriend, girlfriend. Doesn't really matter to us. The number one goal is to keep the child safe and move on from there.
Right.
And if the child is safe for somewhere else, in some other environment, then that may be the best thing that we can do. And that's what we try to get done each and every day. So
I think it's terrifying to be a child that's been physically abused, and if you're somebody out there that has experienced that as a child, you need to know that you are at risk of abusing your children. You got to get help. We're going to hear from Joey. Joey is a professional man in the community, and he's going to share with us a little bit about his experience growing up in an environment where there was physical abuse. And you can kind of see it on Joey's face that he carries it with him even today, even though he's a wonderful dad and a successful man in the community, he still struggles with it. Let's take a look at that.
Back in childhood, when you're thinking about where you started and the way things were and the way things that my life, the deal that I had to go through, young mother with 3 kids, that was my mom. I was the middle kid. My mom was divorced by the time I was 1, and she had to raise us on her own. And in a time where parental discipline was you take measures into your own hands as far as what you do to discipline your kids, I was disciplined in a way that today would get people in a lot of trouble. And the pain that I felt was emotional and physical because my mother's weapon of choice was the Hot Wheels track. And if you've seen those, they can leave a welt on you pretty good. And she did not care where she hit. It was a matter of taking care of me at the moment to settle me down, to calm me down. That was the physical side, but the emotional side was more of people looking at me when I was young and I was hyperactive and things, just running around a lot, and they just looked at me and said, you're not going to be worth anything when you get older because you can't control yourself. And I think, today I look at that as frustrating and aggravating and sitting there going, how can people tell people that kind of thing? And it still plays a big role in me today as far as the way that I do my work and the way that I function. And it always there's always something in the back of my head that says, you're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to do any good. And what I've done to combat that was work harder, study harder, go through things more, go to college, get my college degree, join a group in the community like Aware Central Texas and teach throughout the community as far as getting the word out to people that you don't have to feel like this. You don't have to be like me. You can be something better, and everybody is precious. And everybody is worth it. And nobody has to rely on somebody else's personal opinion about you to gain your personal aspect of respect. You are the individual that you are, and you need to make through what you've got, the ability that you have to contain yourself and to contain the others around you. So that's what happened to me when I was a child.
You just heard Joey's story, and you heard that he is able to move away from his legacy of abuse, and it was physical abuse and emotional abuse. And although Joey is a successful man today, he's still haunted by his past. And you also need to understand that if you are a person that suffered from child abuse and neglect as a child, unless you deal with it, it's going to haunt you, and it's going to show up in the next generation, and the next, and the next, and the next. So we want to encourage you, please, please call us or talk to someone and get help. Even if you're not living in that situation now, it's still with you. And you will be at huge risk to hurt your children or your grandchildren. So our number again is 254-939-7582. I don't care if you're out of our region, we're here for you. The number again is 254-939-7582. You can check out our website, awarecentraltexas.org, or you can also go on our Facebook. Thank you, Leah, and thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
I so appreciate y'all. I appreciate what you're doing, and I know you're seeing hard things and you're having to deal with hard situations, but there is good help out there. And we're not here to judge people.
Right.
We're here to help people move away from the harm, and let's take better care of our kids, because our kids are our future, and they're so precious.
That's so true.
So keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so very, very much again. And here again, just know this one thing, that you don't have to abuse your children. There is a better way. And if you were abused, you can move away from it. There is hope.
May the face of the Lord shine on you. May He shower His blessing on all that you do. May you never know anguish, sorrow, or strife. Dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of your life.
The Effects of Child Abuse and Neglect is brought to you by Texel, your credit union, with locations in Temple, Belton, and Killeen. Visit us at texel.org.